From Yarm to Yibby, Harrington to Horsley Hill, Swarwell to Silverlink. The North East Footy Breakfast with Roy, Steve and Ted.
Right across the North East, the Red, the Toon and the Cat.
Morning.
Oh yeah, there he is.
Good morning all.
Yeah. Oh,
What a fantastic morning it is too. The sun's shining, the birds are tweeting. It's just good to be alive, isn't it?
But not in Australia, where Rye's got a sandbag at his front door, stopping the water coming in.
He has, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's got another
Slightly
storm.
Unfortunate for our Rye, bless him. So yeah, we're going to do the show Ryless, which was Ryless Wireless. I quite like the sound of that. Yeah, it's going to be quieter today. It's maybe a little bit classier. You can probably just move the radio that bit closer without being shouted at by the loud brash Aussie. But we do sincerely hope he's going to be alright, because it's absolutely naff weather he's got over there, lads, isn't it?
He's got another one of those massive Aussie storms sweeping through. I don't know what he's done wrong, but the gods, the wrath of the gods, are certainly focused on him at the moment. So if you're somehow listening, Rye, keep safe, mate. Keep the family safe.
Yeah, stay safe. Plenty to talk about this morning.
No, there isn't.
Footy Breakfast.
No.
Oh, there is.
Sunderland,
No, there is.
as predicted, beat Leeds 1-0. And a great performance from the Mackems, who've mind the gap, is the same we've used on here quite a few times. That gap's getting bigger between them and Middlesbrough. Of course, tonight we'll look ahead to the final game in the group stages of the Champions League. Man United crashed out last night. Can Newcastle United stay in the competition, or will they end up in the Europa League? We will have a little chat about that over the course of the morning. Plenty of other stuff to get through as well, which we may tackle. Everton at risk of administration now because 7-7 partners are told there's no chance of the takeover being approved soon. We all know how long it takes for a takeover to go through, certainly on Tyneside.
Maybe it's even a second time.
Exactly, and Jim Ratcliffe, who is also looking at taking over Manchester United. News broke last night that the French club owned by Sir Jim did a major transfer deal with a club owned by a Russian railway, which is under strict UK sanctions for its role in the Ukraine. So is that potential takeover or investment in the club under threat now? Also, another Premier League vote went through yesterday. They seem to be busy at the Premier League, don't they, putting votes through? And this was to say that they are going to limit amortisation of new contracts to a maximum of 5 years. Deals can still be longer, but amortisation can't. So we can discuss that. Who's that aimed at? Chelsea, perhaps? Dean Smith.
They voted for it.
Yeah, but interesting. I mean, they're the ones who give out 8, 9, 10-year contracts. Strange situation. But in the Premier League, as I say, regularly meeting and putting new things in place. Why are they doing this? Dean Smith is back in football by the looks of it, but he's beaten Frank Lampard to a job as manager of Charlotte FC. I had to Google the club, I'd never heard of them. Is Frank Lampard's managerial career over? And David Moyes, former Sunderland manager of course, and Manchester United manager, has had the dreaded vote of confidence. I just want to know who you think will be next in the Premier League sack race. And another Sunderland related story that I picked up on last night, and that's Dwight York saying he would love to be considered as Sunderland's next manager. But he felt it was a bit of a slap in the face that he didn't get the job when Tony Mowbray was given it.
I'd like to be Prime Minister, but you got to do certain things before you get those positions.
This is it. And let's not forget as well.
Oh,
mind the gap. Mind the gap. But mind the gap.
That is banned. That is banned this morning.
Borough do take on Hull tonight to try and pull themselves back into contention for the playoffs. Can Borough do it tonight? I'm sure we don't have Rye, but we do have Radio Dad, who'll be able to give us a comprehensive answer to that question.
Yeah, and we do have a Rye with us actually, because Rye in Plymouth has been quick off the block on the old WhatsApp 0330 043 2002. That's 0330 043 2002. Rye, good friend to this. I've got to be careful, haven't I, when I keep saying Rye here. Rye. Because Rye's a good friend of the show. He's based in Plymouth. He describes himself as a 51-49% Plymouth stroke Borough fan. And he said, good morning, everyone. We don't need the hype. We don't need to hype up the Mackems. Beating that small team from West Yorkshire. Good point, mate. I think we'll start there.
Wow.
So we're going to talk about the small club from North Yorkshire instead, are we?
Well, let's hear your
Morning,
wax.
Rye.
Let's hear your wax lyrical about that, Ted. Because I did watch the game last night. I've got to be honest, and I will say, first of all, that I predicted a Sunderland win, which I was right about. Secondly, I was impressed with the way Sunderland played last night. It was a tactical game. Dodds was on his knees in that first 6 or 7 minutes, looking from pitch level. I was watching him with interest. Certainly looks every part of the manager. The players were certainly playing for him last night. But I just thought there was a method in his madness last night, and Leeds are no mugs. They are a good team. They are hoping to be in and amongst it at the end of the season. But I think probably the best thing I could say is the Sunderland unsettled Leeds. They absorbed the pressure, and then they went about their plan and got the just desserts. It was a scruffy goal. It wasn't a 30-yard wonder goal. It was bundled over the line, but it was a goal nonetheless, and it sent a cold Sunderland crowd home happy with 3 points in the bag and possibly dreaming of better things to come over this festive period, because back-to-back wins and 6 points on the board makes a big difference at that level.
Oh, absolutely, mate. I mean, for me, I took more joy out of that game last night than what I did out of beating Southampton 5-0. And I genuinely mean that. And I'll tell you for why. I saw something different from Sunderland last night. I've been on the show many, many times where I've said, we just don't look like we have a plan B. And last night, Mike Dodds gave what I can only describe as a tactical masterclass. It was absolutely superb, the game. You could see a few of the fans on Facebook, kind of a little bit nervous before the game, going, oh, well, obviously when the team sheet came out, straight away we're playing with 3 centre-backs. And that raised a few eyebrows. Now, for me, that was just sensible, because that front four that Leeds have is a Premier League class front four. You've got to be on your game. I mean, there's a reason up till last night they'd only lost 3 games all season, and that's because they are absolutely deadly up front. When somebody of the quality of Patrick Bamford kind of get on the pitch for a starting position, you've got some firepower in the Championship. So they lined up completely differently in terms of dealing with the defensive side of the game. I think Leeds had maybe 1 shot on target in the first half and 1 cleared off the line in the second half. They were what I would call like sort of gilt-edged chances. Were dealt with them so effectively. But the other side of the game that I saw from Sunderland last night was a real physical performance and got into the faces of Leeds. We all joke about calling them dirty Leeds because they always were a physical side. But Sunderland got stuck in on a level last night. I think special praise has to go to the fullbacks who put on absolutely fantastic performance up and down that line. The tackling, Trey Hume's tackles are just... he reminds me of like John Kay, but an ultimate athlete version of him. He puts in an absolute tractor-like performance at times. He's just tremendous in the tackle. The fans love that as well. I mean, you talk about sending the fans home warm and happy. We celebrate those tackles as much as we celebrate goals. And defensively, I thought Jensen sealed coming in for a start. Only his second start for the club. He didn't look out of place. He had to be looked after a little bit. Obviously, he's still a little bit rusty when he comes into that. But he looked like he belonged in that. 09, apart from his daft little yellow card, I thought 09 had an excellent game, which I'm quite critical of him. Patterson, brilliant. Start front, and Job. Exactly what I said before the game yesterday on yesterday's show. Job gets into positions where he can score goals, and you're right in what you're saying, Steve. It wasn't a classy goal by any means, but to be in there and for an 18-year-old kid to be brave enough to stick his head on that when the keeper's on rushing. I don't know whether you saw the challenge after he actually got the header in, but the keeper's wrestled him to the floor in some sort of headlock. So if he'd missed it, would have been a penalty without a doubt. But sticks himself on the line there to go and get the goal. But Mike Dodds, just to turn that around, getting back to him, the tactics last night were absolutely spot on, and yeah, that gives us a lot of hope. And obviously, as I'll allude to in my headlines later, all the talk is now is let's give him a chance.
I mean, I thought O'Nien had a decent game last night. I watched him because obviously I know that you are, critical of him at times.
Yeah.
I thought he was unlucky with the yellow card. To be fair, I thought he was, in the championship that we played in a few years back now, that would have just been shrugged off. Get on with it. But the referee was quick to pull the yellow card out. I thought on that, but Patterson stood out for me. Newcastle and Sunderland have both had good keepers over the years, and he just seems to be another one that they've managed to get in, and he does a good job. He was under pressure at times last night, but he handles the ball well. He's a good shot stopper, and his kicking's good. So it's all you need for a goalkeeper. And I just think that looking at that last night, I don't think unless they have a major injury crisis that Sunderland have got much to worry about as far as playoffs are concerned. It's a case of getting through to that playoff semi-final and then hoping that you get a favourable draw and get back to Wembley and do what you want. But I've said that at the start of the show in August, I said that Sunderland and Middlesbrough would be there or thereabouts in the playoffs again, and so far so good. Sunderland are keeping their side of the deal. I still think Middlesbrough will be there or thereabouts. I mean, lots of rumours flying around about Carrick on our WhatsApp group yesterday, which could of course unsettle Middlesbrough and their players. But they get back to business tonight against Hull, and we'll see whether they can pull it back. But yeah, all in all, a good game, a decent crowd last night as well. I mean, it wasn't a very pleasant night on Tyneside or Wearside last night. The weather had come in by 6 o'clock. It was chucking it down most of the day. Bit of a fog on the Weir last night. Never mind fog on the Tyne, drifting across the ground. But at this time of year, where people are struggling to make ends meet, it was good to see that the fans got out and supported the club last night as well, Ted.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know what it's like, Stephen, and the three North East clubs. I know I take the mick out of Borough's attendance and all that sort of thing, but they are constantly backed by the fans, and to see so many out, 40,000 plus on an absolutely dreadful night weather-wise. And a little special mention as well. A couple of my pals on the page that I write for on Facebook as well. A couple of my mates took their kids down to go and meet the players as they were going in. I mean, it was absolutely bucketing down, and the players still took that little bit of time to mingle with the fans before the games and get a few photographs taken, all that sort of thing. And I just think there's a feel-good factor starting to return to the club, and that's what you want to see. You want to see in those dreadful conditions, fans happy, players sticking together with them, and like you say, on the playoff side of things, mate. If we are there or thereabouts, West Brom are going to be there, Leeds are going to be there. Neither of them are going to fancy taking us on now.
No, definitely not. Dave, did you manage to catch the game last night or the highlights?
Yeah, I caught bits of it. I mean, it was a great win, wasn't it? But the big question that comes out of that win for me, and I said this on Monday when I was with you guys, is what the hell does the club do now? Because not only has Dodsey come in and got them playing well, he's getting results, and not just results. He's getting results against two fancied playoff placed teams. He's not. Turning over Leeds is no mean feat. It really isn't. I mean, they were flying, absolutely flying. And it was only a 1-0 scoreline, but that's all you need. That's all you need for 3 points, fellas. That's all you need to climb the table.
I'll go through a full season of that.
Yeah, so would I. So would I. I'd go for a full season with it coming off a dog and going into goal, even though it would be ruled out. What do they do? They've openly said that they're interviewing candidates, their chosen candidates. But Dodsey's come in now, 2-2, 6 points out of 2 games. Yeah. Both home games, you can try and take the gloss off as much as you want by saying both at home, whatever, rainy night, maybe Leeds weren't on their game, etc., etc. Load of crap. He's done what's been put in front of him, and he must have a shout. He must have a shout now in a permanent position.
Yeah, go on, Ted. What's your thoughts?
He's got to be, at least for me, and this was kind of the overwhelming theme, I guess, from the Sunderland fans last night is let's give them until January. You know, let's let the club go through this process. If they want to, interview for a new head coach, that's fair enough. At the very worst, it means we've got Mike Dodds as an absolute first-class first-team coach. What did him a massive favour last night was the complete change in tactics.
And that's what I was going to. That was the next thing I was going to come on to. Never change a winning team and all that sort of stuff. He did.
Yeah, he changed the winning team. He brought Pritchard in, which I predicted yesterday. He's a massive fan of Alex Pritchard, and Pritchard was absolutely fantastic last night. He's such a clever technical player. He's got a deft touch on him. He's got an eye for a pass. I know Clarkey got the man of the match last night, but Pritchard kind of being too far behind him. Even Daniel Farke went on the pitch to congratulate him. Obviously, he's old Huddersfield coach. So he knows all about him and knows how much he contributed to it. But back to Dodsey, the overwhelming theme now is to give him until January. That way, you can do your due diligence on other managers. What it also sort of gives the club a chance to do is not make a knee-jerk appointment. There's a kind of a gathering momentum that people want to see Will Still, and I do believe that would work well for the club. I think he's exactly the kind of guy who would fit in with the whole ethos of the club. But if any of these coaches that have been interviewed are even in two minds about it, well, we don't want them, because Sunderland is a big job, and it's a challenging job, but it could be very, very rewarding for the right manager as well, or head coach. So by leaving Dodsey in charge, I think he's got the respect of the players. He's absolutely got the respect of the fans after the last two performances. Like I say, whether you play the same way and kind of eke out the wins, then fair enough. But to change that shape completely and change the whole look of the team, that was an absolute masterclass against, by the way, two very good coaches. And he's completely out-tacticked them, if that's a word. It is now. For me, I'm in agreement with the Sunderland fans. For once, I think we're all pretty much along the same lines of let's give him a shot, because he's earning it at this moment in time.
One question, though, is there a danger if they don't give him it? Is there a danger they could just, do his end in and him lose? He wouldn't lose confidence or self-belief, but he could they demotivate him by not giving him a shout? If he does, if he goes into the weekend and takes another 3 points, 9 out of 3 games, Sunderland flying again, he's getting his tactics right, and then they turn around and say, thanks very much, you're back down to first team coach.
But the thing is, he has, to all intents and purposes, been undecided about whether he wants to go for the role full time or not. I'm guessing I'm giving away a little bit of my headlines already. He's actually going to talk to his partner today while they're out Christmas shopping about the job, which I think is that just tells you like the innocence of the guy as well. There's nothing convoluted about him. I mentioned this yesterday. Dodsey's employed by the club as a first team coach. He's not the pick of the head coach or the manager. He's not like sort of part of a backroom staff that comes in and will be gone with the next manager. It doesn't work like that with Sunderland. He is in place, the same as what Proctor is, the same as Bagherini, the goalkeeping coach. They are employed by the club themselves as standalone Sunderland AFC coaches. And his job is secure as far as that's concerned. So, in a way, it's a massive risk to take that step up to the head coach position, which, as we know, you could be out after 3 months if it goes all horribly wrong. Yeah. And then where is he? He can't step back into being a first team coach at Sunderland then. So, in his way...
But there is ambition, isn't there? Every human being on this planet has some form of ambition.
There has been cases in clubs in the North East where people have done that. I'm trying to think back in time, in my supporting time in Newcastle, but I think Colin Suggett is probably one that stands out. I think he went caretaker twice at Newcastle and didn't do well on either occasion, but they still kept him on, Ted. Yeah,
true. And Kevin Ball, I guess, he went back to being academy coach after taking temporary charge, but the likes of Ball, he's a different beast, though, isn't it? Because for all he wasn't born in the area, you cut Ball in half and he bleeds red and white. Absolutely, 100%.
We've got Woodgate at Borough as well, weren't we? We fired Woodgate as manager, And
But he stayed on.
then he came back, didn't he? He's with he's now basically the number 2 with Michael Carrick. So there are these instances where similar things have happened.
Yeah, it is possible. I guess we'll find out in the next few days. We've got a few days before the Bristol City game. I still probably expect Dodsey to be in charge for that, and then we'll go from there. The rumour was that Kira Louis-Dreyfus did interview Will Still yesterday, and to all intents and purposes, it was quite positive talks coming out of one of the Belgian newspapers. But it's paper talk. I'll believe it when somebody's holding a scarf up at the Academy of Light, I guess. But for now, Dodsey's in charge, mate. Dodsey's at the wheel. He's our own Ollie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fascinating story. If he does get it, do you think it'll come down to finances, Ted? Because obviously Sunderland's owners run things on a tight budget, shall we say? You know, they've had to, because they inherited a bit of a mess by all intents and purposes. So would it appeal to them if Dodsey is getting results to say, well, actually, you know, maybe we don't need to make any rash decisions here. You know, from a financial point of view, it makes more sense. Dodsey's going to be on a cheaper wage. He's still going to be on his ordinary wage for now. And maybe they say, well, look, get us to the end of the season, see where we're at, and we'll talk contracts if you've got us to where we want to be.
Yeah, I think it's a cracking point, mate. And, you know, Kira Louis-Dreyfus doesn't make a statement about Sunderland AFC without mentioning the word sustainability. The Sky commentators last night mentioned that we're a top 6 side with a bottom 7 wage budget, and that's, while that's it's a fantastic achievement. I think we have got possibly a little bit more money in the coffers than what everyone's suggesting. But to see Dodsey pulling out, you know, results like that on a, you know, with the same players that Tony Mowbray had at his disposal, and being able to turn the team around and make tactical changes, yeah, of course, not only Dods' wage, but the need lessons to actually go out and buy players as well. Last night proved a point. We didn't play with a striker last night. We beat one of the best sides in the Championship.
Here's a
we
question.
We don't need to go and buy one.
I mean, we've done this show, and you know, Rai, myself, Dave, Daz, you know, we're not Sunderland fans. We don't watch Sunderland religiously. You know, we dip in and out. You know, I watched the full game last night, but I don't remember having a conversation with you on here about Sunderland being in terrible form, about Mugger being a terrible manager. So how have we got to this situation, really? Because, you know, for me, it really had a strange feel around it. Normally with a manager, you know, people are shouting for his head, people want him out. There's a huge, you know, the huge overwhelming support of, you know, the fans saying you've got to make a change, you've got to make a change. We didn't really have that around Mugger. You know, I just find it a little bit strange how we've got to this scenario. Why do you think that is? Was it simply those results over the last 2 to 3 weeks where people were scratching their heads saying, oh, we'll better get rid of him before it does turn into a horrendous season? It's just got a really strange feel about it, this.
I agree to a certain extent, maybe, and I think you're right. I think the recent sort of the dip in form towards the end of Mogger's tenure was definitely a contributing factor. It's got to be. You know, I think it was 2 wins in the last 9 of his games. And some of the performances were just a bit flat. It was like we'd almost run out of ideas a little bit. So the form, yes, absolutely. But I think the big thing was that Mowbray he opened up on the fact that he wanted more experience in the team. Yes, it's great that we have young lads on the pitch, and it's fantastic some of the football that they play at times. But he felt we needed more experience in there to be able to sort of win on a consistent basis, I guess, is the best way to put it. And the ownership kind of, you know, I guess I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but I'm guessing that the conversation has gone or something along the lines of, well, that's what you signed up for, Tony. You knew what the deal was. You knew, you know, it's a young team. You know that we're going to recruit players for next to nothing. We're going to improve them, and we're going to sell them on as a profit. That's the model of the club. And you know, it has to be, because we couldn't run it the way the club's been run in the last sort of 10 to 15 years, because we wouldn't have a club anymore. So I think there's a little bit of the not a change of heart from Mogger, but just kind of a little bit of frustration for him that he wasn't going to be backed in terms of bringing experience in to help him out. Now, what Dodsey went and proved last night is that you don't necessarily always need experience. You need a coach who can really gel with the players and speak to the players on a level where they understand their roles, and they understand that those roles will change as well. It's not all about, walking the ball into the net and playing lovely tick-a-tack of football. Sometimes it's about rolling your sleeves up, getting mucky and putting in a couple of naughty challenges, and that's exactly what they did last night. So, Dodsey's almost proved the ownership right in their decision to let Mowbray go, because he's got a bunch of young players playing like men.
Should we ever listen to Dodsey?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we got Dodsey after the game. This is what he had to say.
Same as Saturday, really. Delighted for everyone, delighted for the players, delighted for the rec room staff, most importantly, delighted for the fans. I'm absolutely chuffed in terms of the way they've gone about their business, executed the game plan to a T. I just said to the guys in there that, we've played two teams in the playoffs, two really, really good teams with Premier League budgets, with, really, really clever tactical coaches, and we've conceded, five shots on goal in 2 games. So if you said that to me a week ago, I would have snapped your hands off. But that just shows the kind of character the boys we've got in the dressing room. They've been an absolute pleasure to work with, and they're a credit to themselves, and more importantly, they're a credit to the football club.
You can see him beaming, can't you, while he's talking there? I mean,
you can, yeah.
You can.
Yeah, totally, and he deserves all the credit he gets for it as well. Very quick to pass it on to the players, by the way, but that's just great management.
He just needs to sit back and watch what Eddie Howe does, really. You just use that as a bit of a benchmark, you know what I mean? As far as interviews are concerned, he'll not go far wrong with Sunderland fans. It
was a Howe-esque interview, actually. Yeah, you're right.
Well, it definitely was. Just before we go to the sports headlines, here's $1 million question for you. Obviously, looking at the squad that you've got and looking at the situation you're in with the manager at this moment in time, do you really want to go up this year, Ted?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Of course we do. Of course we want to go up. That's the whole idea of getting it as high as we can. If not now, when? There's never going to be a good time or a bad time to get promoted. We know the model. We know how the club works. By getting promoted, it means we can keep more of that squad together, because obviously there's less of a need to sell players. Plus, obviously, it attracts a different class of younger player to the club as well. Instead of shopping around the likes of Spurs and teams like that, all of a sudden you're dining at the top table, and you maybe attract the likes of a Manchester City up and coming player, or somebody from abroad as well. The way we've played over the last couple of games is bound to turn a couple of players' heads who are looking for moves in January and think, do you know what? Quite fancy being a part of that. So yes, I would love to get promoted this season. Yes, we'd struggle in the Premier League because everybody does who goes up. We haven't got the same budgets. You need to be there. I think you said it yesterday, Steve. That first season, the trick is to get over that. Once you're into a second season, you become that much more difficult to relegate.
Okay, 7:30. Time for the sports headlines.
Ah, nice. That's
Fantastic.
nice.
It's a good one.
Track that.
Yeah, it's nice.
Never ever. It's another one of them though. It's never ever intended as a Christmas song.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Did it get a number 1? That one.
I think it did.
Didn't it? It did. Yeah.
I think it did.
It did. Yeah.
I think it did. Here we are. We've really done our homework on this show, haven't we? I think it did.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
It's just
Did it?
It's one of them. I thought, it's a good Christmas song. It's a good Christmas song anyway.
Rye's been back on, by the way. Plymouth Rye.
Good morning, Rye in Plymouth.
We'll have to call him Plymouth Rye, won't we? Just to differentiate. He's been back on. He said he's off to QPR later today to go and see the 23rd worst home record versus the 23rd worst away record.
Wow.
Belter, that one, isn't it? 0-0 written all over it. And also, he then chirped in with, in my opinion, I think Mogga being sacked wasn't the right decision. So, there you go, mate. Thank you for that one. But there's good news. Talking of our Rye, if you're wondering where he is, he's currently batting down the hatches because another massive storm is sweeping through Australia where he lives. And he's telling us he's got sandbags at the door to try and keep water out the house. I mean, that's how bad the flooding's getting in Canberra.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it looks an absolute
It's
disaster
serious,
area
doesn't
at the
it?
moment. But good luck, Rye. Hope everything's okay and you're back with us soon.
Fingers
I'll
crossed.
tell you what, who else has got bad luck, and that's Everton at the moment. Because the story coming out last night from Goodison was that they are at risk of administration now because buyers or potential buyers, 777 partners, have been told that there is no chance of their potential takeover being approved soon. So because of that, they are set to stop funding Everton, which could raise fears of new points deductions for Everton. The news just gets worse and worse for that team, and you know they've already pulled off a remarkable run of form, beating Newcastle, of course, got a win again at the weekend, Ted, and managed to claw themselves now out of the relegation zone, making the 10-point deduction look farcical. But from their point of view, it's backs against the wall, us against them kind of mentality, which Sean Dyche revelled in. Let's face it, he did such a great job at Burnley for years, keeping their heads above water, and at times, getting them further up the Premier League than anybody could have ever predicted. But he's now got the same kind of mentality at Everton, but it looks as if they could be hit again if this takeover drags on. And the Premier League are very cautious with takeovers, as Newcastle fans know. They didn't want Newcastle's takeover going through because of the Saudi connection, the talk of sports washing, etc. 777 Partners is slightly different, but again, they are meticulous now in their investigations into who is exactly behind the various takeovers that are potentially going to go through. They're meticulous in it because they don't want a situation to develop where somebody comes in and then it's proved to be something that it wasn't, or that there are unscrupulous people involved, or that something underhand has gone on. So they want to dot the I's, cross the T's, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And this probably is a direct result of Newcastle's takeover, because it was such a national news story. Richard Masters must have been sick of being front page rather than back page. And this is the reason that the Premier League are like this. But this is bad news for Everton, who are on a horrendous financial footing.
It is. I mean, for once, Everton are just starting to sort themselves out on the pitch. Just it's ironic that they couldn't buy a win at one time, and all of a sudden, they're starting to put these performances together.
Then take 10 points off of them and they're flying.
Well, that's it. It's like the story about the kid putting his finger in the dam, and all of a sudden there's a leak springs somewhere else, and that's literally what Everton look like at this moment in time. They're just springing problems left, right, and centre. It's the thing with the ownership. Yeah, of course, everything has to be ratified carefully these days. But I mean, that horse bolted a long time ago. To be honest, I think that again, the FA and the Premier League are just kind of trying to save face a little bit with it now. What I can't believe is how fiercely Everton seem to be hunted down in this. I'm sure they're not the only team that's either flouted these, not flouted the rules, but ran a little bit close to the bone in terms of how the financials are dealt with. They can't be the only one, but they just seem to be hell bent on making an example out of Everton. And yeah, to all intents and purposes, the club could go down, not just in terms of in a division if there is another points deduction in place, but this is the sort of thing that can take a club under. And I'm sorry, I know I'm not the biggest fan of Everton. I think their fans sometimes got delusions of grandeur and all that, but they are a pretty big side. Let's be honest. And football needs old clubs like that. So whatever happens, I mean, I do hope that it is resolved without the need of actually sending this good club under that's brought plenty of enjoyment to the Premier League over the years and First Division before that. The thing is now, I guess if they do get relegated and there is another points deduction, what you are going to find is any of these potential takeovers are not going to happen while they're in the Premier League, because why would you? Why would you pay Premier League money for a club? They're going to wait till they get relegated to division and then obviously buy cheap and hopefully take them back up.
It's interesting because I thought that's what would have happened with Newcastle's takeover when PIF came in and Amanda Staveley and everyone else. I felt they would wait because obviously it would be cheaper to buy, but then there's that problem in the Championship that you can't be guaranteed that you're going to be able to get out, and then suddenly you buy something which isn't a shrewd investment, because it's the gap, I guess, in TV money. Obviously it's shorter now. There's still investment. You can still, if you're at the right end of the table in the Championship, you can still make decent money off Sky and other TV networks, but ultimately there is a big gap in finance, and I think that's why you don't see many teams being bought over. I mean, Sunderland are ripe for a takeover. I've said it before on here. There's a 40,000 plus stadium there, which 9 times out of 10 is full, and you ultimately have a club which, if anybody had any ambition and vision, could I'm sure turn that round. Why couldn't they? Mismanagement in the past is the reason that Sunderland haven't gone on to do well, and it's the same kind of poison chalice Newcastle had for years. Mismanagement, people looking after themselves rather than looking after the club itself. For years we talked about the family silver, and people who ran the club just reluctant to put their own money in, and then any money that the fans put in, just seemed to disappear into the ethos. But Ashley was a different kettle of fish altogether. Ashley was somebody who came in and told us what his plan was. He came in to promote his sports brand globally, and that's what he did. Never came in and said he was going to get Newcastle here, there, and everywhere. But from our perspective, we're in a different bubble now. I've
got to make an admission on that, by the way, guys. I've got to make an admission. It has been 3 days since. No, I was at home yesterday doing some work, sitting in the lounge. I thought I'll put the TV on, and I'm flicking through the channels and seeing what was on, and I came across We Are Newcastle. So I've done 2 episodes of We Are Newcastle now, and talking about ownership and changes and things that are going on. It is an interesting watch, although I do have to cringe at some of the things I'm seeing on there. With Amanda and my dad going into dressing rooms and talking to players and all that sort of stuff. It's just the old traditionalist coming out in me, and when the players went across to Saudi to see the Emir, and I'm thinking, I wonder what's going through the player's mind standing there while he's saying, you're all doing a great job and stuff. I don't know. I've got to be honest. It is an interesting watch, and if I put my football business hat on, and look at it through those eyes, it is interesting to see, the transformation that needs to take place, and it is one of those docos that's more about the takeover and the leadership than action on the pitch. And I know a few fans have complained.
Brochure.
It is.
It's a commercial brochure.
Of course it is. But it's interesting to, with that hat on the commercial side, listen to some of the conversations and comments that are going on. So I'll tell you more after I've done the other 2.
Yeah, okay, that'll be interesting. I mean, for
I'll
me,
have a little watch of that, actually. Yeah.
It is. I mean, it is worth a watch. I mean, some of these things are cringeworthy, especially when it's your own club. But in all intents and purposes, it shows you the ambition. It shows you that there's a plan. It shows you that the people do care. I get where you're coming from with regards to the likes of Amanda walking into the dressing room, etc. But that really is that isn't something that they do time after time. But I guess in another sense, it shows that there's a camaraderie there. There's no distance between the ownership and the manager. And they're there to support them. So I get it, and that happens. That happens without the TV cameras in there. It's something they've always done. I mean, Amanda is quite prevalent with the women's team, who, by the way, got a wonderful draw in the Women's FA Cup against Manchester United yesterday. So from her perspective, she just likes to be hands on. And yes, some of it's PR. Some of it'll be good PR for her, but good PR for the football club. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It shows that there's unity. It's better than having an owner who literally is sitting in the stands, once or twice a season, and then flying off in his helicopter and not saying anything. I think there's a big difference to our previous owner. and what we've got now. So yeah, it's things are a lot more positive. But yeah, Everton. Interesting times. We will wait and see what happens there. Another potential.
Are they too big? Are they too big to go bust?
Yeah, go on. No, they're not,
Nobody
and
is.
that's the problem. I don't think this helped. You know, with some of the directors who had to step down. You know, and obviously one of the greatest directors, Bill Kenwright, who sadly passed away this year. I don't think this whole situation at Everton will have helped his health, you know, in any way, shape or form. I mean, you know, his last year he was under extreme pressure. The fans turned on him. It must have been horrendous for him, because what Bill Kenwright did is put his own money in, and he was a fan.
Yeah.
And you know, he was. You know, I'm not a huge fan of Everton Football Club anyway. You know, I've always preferred the red side of the city to the blue, but you know what? Bill Kenwright was one of football's good guys, and he didn't deserve that end to his time at Everton. And I just, you know, I look at it and think, you know, this is a potential, you know, for this club to go bust, and it could happen. It really could happen. The problem that we've got is, you know, with this impending takeover, which they're highly reliant on, they've also got a ground that's been built, and you know, that's the big problem. That's
brought in huge debt.
Well, the problem that we've got at the moment is you've got war in Ukraine and you've got the Hamas-Palestine situation, and those two issues are driving prices of building materials and stuff through the roof, and driving everything up, driving every price up in everything, whether it's food, whether it's gas, whether it's oil, whether it's this. You know, it has the economic worldwide effect. That's the problem, and that means that shipping, and of course we've had Brexit in this country, so you've got steel, you've got you know, all of those kind of things which once upon a time you could say, right, well, to get this and to get that it's a certain price. Now the market fluctuates, and if you're doing any kind of building project in the UK now, you know, wow, you better make sure you've got a few extra quid stashed away to complete it, because prices just fluctuate, and it's so hard to get things signed off. So I think that's a huge issue for Everton, and I think if 777 partners pull out, we're in a mess.
Are you there, Tommy? Hello, can you hear me?
Dave. We can hear you, Dave. You're live.
Yeah, we can
Hello,
definitely
Tommy,
hear
can you hear me? It's Dave.
Dave.
We can hear
Hello,
you,
mate,
Dave.
can you hear me?
Apologies to the listeners who are now hearing Dave have a private conversation. We're just thankful that it's not a
Dave's got
situation.
an imaginary friend called Tommy.
Oh, I forgot about forgot to press that button.
It's okay, when you listen back to that, you'll hear how professional me and Ted were, mate.
There you are, brilliant.
Everyone get the podcast today.
Hey, that won't be it, I can guarantee it.
It was a Christmas.
Really?
It was a Christmas version of Ground Control to Major Tom, I think.
Well, we're just trying to get our first guest up in the morning. You might have guessed that, guys. Keep talking. Go on, get on with it.
Who was it like?
I don't know, I've never heard of Tom. I think it's Tom the Borough fan, isn't it, who's coming on just after 10 to 8. But yeah, the other takeover, Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It turns out that the club that he owned, the French club that he owned, did a major transfer deal with a club owned by Russian Railways. Now, they are under strict UK sanctions, Ted, for its role in the Ukraine war. So this doesn't sound good either. This sounds like the Premier League now have got two takeovers that they're potentially looking at, which neither one could go through. I mean, you couldn't script this for Manchester United, who, as we've already heard in the news, dropped out of the Champions League last night. But not only dropped out of the Champions League, missed out on going into the Europa, so they're out of Europe altogether. They picked up two more injuries last night. So, you know, the much maligned centre half Maguire, who, you know, most Manchester United fans wouldn't have had anywhere near the first team at the start of the season, but who has been, you know, pulling up trees for them in recent weeks. He's now injured.
Man,
yeah, he's now injured. But they've also lost Luke Shaw, which means they're going to be without 13 first team players when they take on Liverpool at the weekend. So an injury list akin to Newcastle United. But this takeover, if this doesn't go through, the natives and Melly Barnes, who is doing his own show these days, will be restless. Ted.
I can just feel Melly having an absolute meltdown.
I was going to say, meltdown is the word. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we need to get him on as soon as possible for that one. But yeah,
well, we're talking about. Well, actually, I'm having a conversation with Melly about bringing his pod onto the tune. So I've just said he's going to have to.
Put it on the tune. Put it on the Borough.
The cat don't want it.
Don't be bringing Manchester United onto this channel.
I thought that'd be the response.
There's only one United, and I'm not having it on here.
Get in.
There you go.
Once the red and whites and the black and whites are standing together.
Now you've mentioned the borough. That's a perfect segue, because I inadvertently mentioned I was calling Tommy on the show a little bit earlier, and I'm pleased to say Tommy Walker joins us. He's a big Borough fan, massive Borough fan abroad. You know, we want to track down the North East football fans who are obviously plying their trade and living outside of the UK. Tommy's one of them. He's in Thailand. Tommy, morning. Good afternoon, mate. How are you?
Good afternoon. Yes, thanks. Great. Thanks. It's a lot warmer here than what it appears to be like back in Teesside, I can tell you.
It was typically tropical this morning. It was 6 degrees and raining when I jumped in the car.
Shorts and flip flops and beer garden weather, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got just let you know, Rye's not with us this morning. But we've got Rye from Australia. He's getting battered by a hurricane or something at the moment, so he's fighting the flood water. We've got Ted, who's in Cyprus, and poor me and Steve are in the northeast, freezing to death.
Morning, Tommy.
Yeah, morning, mate. So give us the backstory then. How does a mad Borough fan end up living in Thailand?
Well, my story is, it's a bit worldwide. I mean, I left Teesside about 11, 12 years ago. I've actually lived in Australia, lived in Melbourne for a few years, and Hong Kong. Thailand's now where I live. Basically, I left a few years ago to go travelling, and then I became a travel writer, and then now I work in the media. And I do geopolitics and news correspondency for a couple of broadcasters. Covering Asia, and I've also covered issues in the war in Ukraine. So it's been a bit of a journey. Thailand's where I'm at right now. I've been here for about 3 years, but that doesn't mean I'll be here forever. Let's see what happens. So
where are you?
The gist of it.
Are you Bangkok based or outside of the city?
Bangkok. Yeah. I mean, obviously, most people think of Thailand as the islands and things like that, but honestly, I've tried to live on some of the islands and how amazing they are. I just don't get no work done. So I have to live in the city just to keep focused, to be honest. But Bangkok sound, I mean, it's got everything you want for a city. Weather's still amazing up here. And it's a great place to live.
Go on, what have you got at the moment, temperature-wise? Let's see if it can challenge Ted in Cyprus.
Oh, it will do. We're cold now.
I don't want to end the call. Look on my iPhone. What's the temperature today? Let's have a look.
Well, you can tell us what it was yesterday.
Yeah, no, it's 34 degrees right now. It's 5 to 3. Oh, yeah, it's pretty hot, yeah.
34 degrees. What have you got, Ted?
It's a nippy 19 degrees here. It's, almost Baltic by comparison. I'm very jealous here.
So what are you...
Tommy,
go on.
Yeah, Tommy, Ted here, mate. Obviously, as the lads have already alluded to, I'm out in Cyprus. It's being a football fan and being a bit of an expat. Do you still feel that same sort of sense of belonging and that closeness to the club? Because I find that's the most difficult thing. There's nothing beats being at the match. So you've kind of got to find those other ways where you still feel like you belong to the club and you feel that closeness. How do you tackle that?
Well, I mean, with the rise of social media and the internet now, and I think that's definitely increased it. I mean, when I first left, especially living in Australia, for example, just the time difference to watch a game, it was just too much. So I wouldn't say I lost contact or lost sort of interest, but it was just difficult to keep track of everything. And that was during the Karanka years, things like that. But, living in Hong Kong and now Thailand, I mean, the game, if a game's on at 3:00 in the afternoon, that's like 9 or 10 o'clock here, which is fine, especially on the weekend. You can go out for a few beers and watch it. And like I said, the social media things now, loads of people have got pages and podcasts and things like that. So actually, it's got me even more connected to than in the initial years when I left, just because you can follow so much online. So and also one of the things we've done in Thailand. I mean, you might have spoke to Bam Borough in Thailand.
Yes, yeah.
So I know Bam. In the last couple of years, especially under Carrick, there's a lot of Middlesbrough fans who go to Pattaya, which is a couple of hours down the road from Bangkok, and we've created an unofficial Middlesbrough's Thailand supporters group, and it's just like a Facebook group. There's 100 people in it. And last year, especially, we were just watching the Borough games pretty much every week for the last half of the season. And then that was bringing a lot of Borough fans together, even people just visiting or expats. So, there's ways that you can meet other Borough fans and stay connected that way. So I think, that's sort of how I've kept connected with it. And it's funny because I've met fellow colleagues in the media game who, we don't cover sport, we do news and politics, things like that. But people have said, "Oh, you're Tommy Walker. Now I know you work, but I've heard you're a mad Borough fan." And they know that just from my tweets on Twitter, you know what I mean, or x.com or whatever you want to call it nowadays. Just because,
Twitter. I'm old-fashioned.
Twitter, yeah. So, I'll share some of my work on Twitter, which but a lot of the time I'm commenting on Middlesbrough. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think the internet and social media has just brought it together really, and you can keep track of it a lot easier.
So, okay.
Borough take on Hull. Take on Hull tonight, Tommy. Obviously, Sunderland are saying mind the gap at the moment. They had a great win last night. You find yourselves 3 points behind Hull tonight. So this is a big game. You need to win this to get back in contention. How do you see this one going?
I mean, yeah, we need to win it. I think with the injuries we've got at the moment, and I think obviously with January around the corner, I think Borough will have a big push in the new year. I think if we can just get through Christmas, even if we get a draw or something tonight, if we can just get through the next few weeks where we don't, lose too many games with the injuries we've got and just stay in contention, I think January will have a big push. We might get a couple more signings in and maybe a few more injuries back. But yeah, we should win tonight. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw. Borough are up and down at the moment a little bit. So yeah, I'm hoping for a win, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw. Definitely not a defeat, I don't think.
We're seeing a couple of stories linking Michael Carrick with a potential departure. I mean, would that be something that would worry you at this time? Going into the Christmas period, heavy set of fixtures, and is it unsettling for the dressing room? Do you think?
I mean, Carrick's had speculation about this before, right? I mean, he had it last year, and I think he came out and rectified the speculation. There's always going to be that. I mean, especially when the West Ham job comes under threat for David Moyes, or even Newcastle. I mean, I don't know if that's sort of been talked about a little bit, not as much as West Ham, but I don't know with Carrick. I think, look, he'll be there to the end of the year. I think he's vital for what Borough are doing. I think the way we play, if Carrick wasn't here and we had another manager, I'm not sure them players would react so well. So I think Carrick's so vital to what we're trying to do. It would be a huge blow if he was to leave. But I think I don't see anything in that this Christmas. I think the end of the year, that's when the speculation might become a little stronger, and we'll have to see then.
Okay.
Well, fingers crossed. I'll be there tonight, mate. So I'll be thinking about you while I'm freezing my bits off, and you're enjoying, tequila sunrises, lounging around the pool in 34 degrees.
Well, at 3 in the morning. I mean, I'll be watching it for sure, but I mean, I don't know if I'll be around the pool at that time.
Right, it might be down to 28. It'll be a bit nippy, mate, in the parts. So,
absolutely. No
indeed.
Well, thanks, lads.
Cheers, Tommy.
Cheers,
Appreciate
Tommy.
it, mate.
Thanks for coming on, Tommy. Thanks, man.
Keep in touch. All the best now. Cheers. Brilliant stuff. And we'd love to catch up with more fans, of course, around the world. So come on, you guys. Sunderland, Newcastle. Get your thinking caps on. See what we can catch up. Get their backstories. But it is time for the news. Let's do a bit of that across the northeast on the Cap, the Red and the Two. Oh, it makes you feel full of tinsel and sparkling lights and Christmas tree-like.
I think you need to go to the doctor's,
well.
Dave, to
Okay,
get full of
fine.
that stuff.
Fine. That's fair enough. Doesn't it put you in the Christmas spirit,
Eating the
fellas?
tinsel.
It does for me. I mean, that's fantastic brass playing as well. I love that track.
You do like a bit of brass, don't you, mate? You do like a bit of brass.
I do.
Hey!
Not the
I bet
Thailand
Tommy does in
kind.
Thailand.
Oh, dear, doctor.
Oh, me and Steve share the same lack of class.
Why in Thailand, Tommy?
Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you dragging. Good to see you dragging the tone of this show down to where it's supposed to be,
like
fellas.
Thailand.
Yeah.
Down to Rise level when he's not here. Yeah, you're right. I think it's time to have some club headlines anyway, Dave.
Do you think so?
Back on track, lad.
Who are we going to start with? Who do you fancy? I tell you what, I'll go last, seeing as I've had to scroll. I've got to understand my scroll now. Now I've had to write it down. Steve, you're up first, mate. Here we go.
Magpies and Proud. Mags News.
Good morning, Newcastle United fans. Well, it is here, the final group stage game of the Champions League against AC Milan tonight, an 8 o'clock kickoff. Anthony Gordon and Sean Longstaff were absent from training yesterday, but in slightly more positive news, Dan Burn is reportedly closing in on a return to action. But options are still limited tonight for Eddie Howe and Newcastle United, with Javier Manquillo, Emil Kraft, Matt Ritchie and Mark Gillespie all still omitted, of course, from United's Champions League squad. Loris Karius could be in for a shock return between the sticks tonight, with news that Martin Dubravka may have picked up an injury. With Gillespie omitted from the squad, it would mean that the Toon youngster Harris have been on the bench as goalkeeping cover. So where do we stand tonight? Well, the top two teams advance to the Champions League round of 16. The third place team qualifies for the Europa League knockout round playoff, and the fourth place team, like Manchester United, will be eliminated. And Newcastle United's Premier League visit to Aston Villa on Tuesday, January the 30th, will kick off at 8:15. What a stupid kick-off time, due to live coverage by TNT Sports. Enjoy the match tonight and wrap up warm. It's going to be a cold one. That's your Newcastle United headlines on Wednesday morning.
It's also blowing a hoolie, so get set for that.
Mackems and Proud. Black Cats News.
Good morning, Sunderland fans. Smell that? That smells like 2 victories in a row. Mike Dodds praised his Sunderland players after a revamped starting 11 and system delivered a hugely impressive 1-0 win over Leeds United. Dodds switched to a back three to nullify a dangerous Leeds United attack, bringing Jensen Seelt back into the side and also pushing Alex Pritchard up front in a false 9. The visitors may have dominated the ball, but it was the hosts who created the better of the chances, albeit many of those from set pieces. Before Trey cleared one off the line late on, their XG was about 0.4. For a team of their Premier League quality, to limit them to that number of chances is remarkable, really, explained Mike Dodds. They've got to believe in how we wanted them to set up when we've played against top teams in the league, and I'm thinking of Leicester away when we turned it into basically a 1v1 game. That can psychologically be difficult for a player, and they've really got to believe in how we set them up. Tonight they really believed in it. We played two teams in really, really good form, both with Premier League budgets and good coaches, and I think we've given 5 shots on goal. That says how well organised the players have been and how well prepared they were mentally for the game. Meanwhile, Leeds gaffer Daniel Farke primarily commended Sunderland's performance at the Stadium of Light last night, complimenting their defensive work, but did suggest on more than one occasion that Black Cats had parked the bus. Opposite number Dodds laughed at that particular suggestion during his post-match press conference, appearing to disagree with Farke's terminology and description of his side's display. Leeds were nullified in the northeast and created little of value before Joel Pirro's 89th minute was cleared off the line. Dodds' team executed their game plan to a T, and Sunderland fans were delighted to have come away with 6 points from back-to-back home games against West Brom and Farke's Whites. And finally, Mike Dodds is going to talk to his missus today about the job whilst Christmas shopping, and a growing number of Sunderland fans are wanting to see him rewarded with an extended run in charge of the team. Last night and this morning, comments on the Sunderland Fans and Banter page, one of the biggest social media followings for Sunderland fans, appeared to be awash with calls to give Dodds the job. While the temporary gaffer may need to win more than 2 games to convince all fans of his credentials, he knows the players extremely well, and the supporters are quick to point out that he knows the tactics that he needs to play to get wins like he's done in these past 2 games. The feeling is Mike Dodds should be given to at least until January, giving SAFC owners more time to assess their options. They are your Sunderland headlines this Wednesday morning.
Smoggies and Proud. Borough News.
Well, we don't have the Mad Aussie to do this, so I'm going to have to give it my best shot. Borough take on... Hang on a second, what's going on here? There you go. Something bizarre's happening in the background. We'll try that one again. Borough take on Hull at the Riverside tonight. It's a game against another promotion hopeful. And despite the injury crisis, Michael Carrick is boosted by the return from suspension of both Anthony Dykes-Steele and Izzy Jones. Defender Matt Clark says he's back on cloud 9, which is great to hear after 14 months on the treatment table. The 27-year-old battled through a long-term back injury and made his first start for the Borough at the weekend since Chris Wilder's last game in charge. And the vultures are circling the riverside, if you believe what's been written in the press. A West Ham board source is said to have made conversation that they've made an approach to Michael Carrick to take over as boss, and Spurs are now reported to be after Hayden Hackney. The message from the Red radio station is, ow, keep off.
Ted, Rye and Steve, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the northeast, the red, the cat and the tune.
I loved your headline there, Ted, when you were saying that Dodsy's having a conversation with his wife. I thought that was going to be the headline today. And Mike Dodds talks to his missus.
Well, it should have been that, and that should have just been it. That
would have been a classic.
No context, just Mike Dodds is talking to his missus.
There you go.
And
Fantastic.
that would have been a nice story.
It would have been a Daz classic, that, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Absolutely, yeah. If Daz wrote headlines, yeah.
If Daz wrote headlines, yeah. Obviously, what we've got coming up for the rest of the show, we've still got the headlines, but we're going to have Graham Lee on.
Yeah, chatting to him very soon. Yeah,
from Mask United as well, because obviously they need our help. North East football fans are very good at getting together, so we will have Graham Lee on. So quickly, just because we're going to be speaking to a manager, just let's talk managers. Dean Smith's appearing to have beaten off competition from Frank Lampard. And he's expected to be confirmed as Charlotte FC manager in the next few days. I mean, that's a major smack in the chops, Ted, for Lampard, isn't it? I mean, the man who was Chelsea manager, and who, had done such a great job at Derby County, and, was hoping, people were hoping for big things from Frank Lampard. But Dean Smith, who, let's face it, he's an established manager, Dean Smith. But to go in head to head for a manager of Charlotte FC and Lampard not to get anywhere near it is it? Yeah, I just wonder whether his time as a manager is up.
I don't know whether being up, but you look at Dean Smith and you look at a guy who has worked his way through the football pyramid. Started with Walsall back in 2011. So I think he had something like 6 or 7 years out of the game after finishing as a player. So he's obviously got his badges. He's taken a job with Walsall, which is low league stuff. Had a 3-year spell with Brentford. Then moved on to Villa, Norwich, Leicester. So you can see, there's a scale of improvement there. Now, with the likes of Lampard and Steven Gerrard gets gigs off the back of his name as well. Let's be honest, they're kind of almost expected to walk into top jobs, and what they're finding now is clubs are getting a little bit more wise to that. The days are gone when you would appoint a big name footballer as your new manager and expecting players to want to come and play for your club. Players want to come and play for the club now where A, they're going to get paid the most, and B, actually play some decent football and be taught something and develop as players. I think a lot more players are much more centred around that now. So as while I don't think Lampard's career may be done as such, I think he needs to dial it back a bit and maybe start and work under a good manager as a coach and learn his trade properly. Yes, he's done his badges, but I mean, I've got me 25 metres swimming. It doesn't mean I'm going to be an Olympic swimmer in no time at all. Do you know what I mean? So I might have a little qualification, but that's not everything, is it? It's experience. So I think he needs to go and work with a good manager for a couple of years and ply his trade after that, to be honest, Steve. And the same with Gerrard. Gerrard's proven, we spoke about it off air the other day, that he's probably a game away from being sacked, Stevie G, and that's in the Sunday League over in Saudi. It's ridiculous, really.
I mean, Dean Smith has been confirmed as manager for Charlotte, so that's one that's done and dusted. Yeah, indeed.
I mean, just for people sitting at home scratching their heads, going, "Who are Charlotte FC?" I mean, they're playing the MLS, which look, it's an established league. We know that, but it's not what Frank Lampard was used to, and for him to miss out on a job like that, I just think, especially in the age where America tend to go for like high profile managers, and they like the big names. I wouldn't have thought Dean Smith was a household name in America. So they've gone for the experience of Dean Smith in his CV, because his managerial CV is good.
Absolutely.
As opposed to Frank Lampard, who has a pretty tepid, a pretty tepid managerial CV to say the least. But,
While we're talking managers, pleased to say Graham Lee joins us this morning, manager of Mask United. Graham, good morning. A little bit of a silver lining to the cloud that the club was facing yesterday. Licence came back. You're allowed to start playing football again. What is the current situation with Mask United?
Hi, thanks for having us on.
Morning, Graham.
At the moment, Graham. So we got suspended on Friday. The club were trying to go into a limited company and change ownerships, and the league, obviously there's a process for that to be done. But unfortunately, that was probably one of the only ways we were going to be able to move forward as a club. Financially, we had sort of like a plan in place. Without that plan now, with us getting suspended, and the process will probably take 8 weeks or so, and we would have been suspended for that time. It wouldn't have been feasible. So literally the club, the funds, what we need to get to the end of the season, nothing was there. It was obviously, we've got creditors to be paid. There's just the running cost of the club's wages to be paid, and we just got to the point where it just wasn't doable. And so it's come to the point where we've sort of like give ourselves a window to try and raise some money to keep the club going till the end of the season and more. And like I said, this window of opportunity, if we can get it, then we can keep going. If not, then we'll have to resign from the league, which is what nobody wants to see.
And the club could fold. I mean, it's as serious as that. Yeah,
it's like we're trying to get a plan in place. Like worst scenario, if the club, we have to resign from the league, it means like if we try and restart the next season, obviously the people behind the scenes are trying their best to do it, keep us afloat. But if we do have to go sort of like resign from this league, we don't know where. If we try and restart the club again, we don't know what league that would be. It could be 4 leagues, 5 leagues lower down, and it'll be the plan we're trying to get. The worst scenario would be Mask United Limited, and they'd do that limited company from the start of next season. But it means God knows what league we'd end up being in, and the club had been in, and where they'd try and start. And it just obviously all that where the club are at the moment, they've done fantastic to get there. It's just, like I said, we're trying our best to try and keep us afloat, because it's all right saying we'll restart, but it's easier said than done to say the club can restart, because there'll be a lot more things to be done to try and do that. So there's no guarantee in anything. We're just trying to get backup plans and things in place. But yeah, if we have to resign from the league, that means the gates will close immediately.
We were talking earlier about Everton and the situation they're finding themselves in, because of the 777 arrangement and what came out yesterday from Merseyside. But I suppose everybody listening to this, being football fans, particularly Borough, Sunderland, Newcastle, they know the impact of a football club on the local community. But what about a club like Mask United, like the others in there, whether it's the Northern Prem or the Northern League? I mean, what do those clubs mean to their local communities?
It's the people of like Mask, the clubs are run by the volunteers. They're not getting paid to come and do what they do. They're doing it for free, and the majority of these clubs are run by these type of people. And it's a proper community club. It's people's lives. There's people there now who are trying to bring the club forward. There's like the groundsman, who he was the groundsman. He's now going to go as chairman because he's stepped himself forward to try and do. He's a retired man who's helped volunteer to cut the grass, but in his previous jobs he's run businesses. He knows what he's doing, and he's stepped forward, and he's the type of people like who are the heartbeat of these clubs, and this is why you want these clubs. It's like we've got fans there who've been going since God knows they've played in the 50s for the club, and now they're supporting the club, and it's just a part of the community. And like Mask's been part of North East football history for many years.
Yeah, I mean, I've been up there many a time watching Dunstan play, and it's a great club. The tin shed makes some noise. It's quite an intimidating ground for non-league fans to go to when you're up against the support. But it's a great club. It deserves the support of North East football fans, and hopefully they'll be able to pull themselves together, because it would be a tragedy to see Mask have to start. If you had to start again and drop down 4 or 5 divisions, I mean that has major implications, financially, of course, but I know the community will get behind it and still support the club, because the club will still be there. But I just don't think people realise what it takes to run a non-league club such as yours. It's such a tough thing, because the players can get an earner for running around kicking a ball, which we'd all love to have done back in the day. But it's the time and effort that goes into it, and you've just mentioned the word volunteers. People don't realise that the people that you see wearing the official club, T-shirt or the official club jacket, those people don't get paid. They don't get paid. They are volunteers, and they're doing it for the love of the club. They're doing it for the love of the game. And if you take this football club away from those people, it leaves some of them with absolutely nothing. It's a detrimental effect it has on those people. So for me, 100% got our support. We're going to be giving it a mention on NUFC Matters as well, and giving it a good shout out on our Friday night show, because we want people to get behind it. I'm going to give this a share on my social media and hopefully get some support for you as well. But it's a massive club, Musk, and you don't want to see them go out of business. You don't want to see them start again. So I'm hoping that all of our listeners, whether you listen live or you listen on the podcast, can get behind this campaign. And where can people help, Graham? Where can people help?
If they go on the Mask United all the social media pages now, they've got themselves just given a GoFund page where the people can donate. There's again where we talk about volunteers. We've got volunteers. We've got couple of grassroots teams going to the Borough game tonight with buckets. So they'll be outside the ground. Just like I said, if any 50 pence, £1, if anyone can help, it's all mounts up. If quite a few people do it, and like I said, what you said there, it's people's lives. It's not like you said they're doing things to get paid. They're doing things to volunteering to be part of this club, and the club's been part of people's lives, and people just want to keep it continuing. The football side of it, for me, and the players, budget wise, we're probably one of the lowest in the league, but it's still a big ask in this to continue. But we're not bothered about obviously the wages and things. It's about the club moving forward, and we want to try and just make sure if we can get to the end of this season, we know we'll have a plan in place to move the club forward.
And I was looking at the Just Giving page for the crowdfunding yesterday, and some of the donations and some of the comments, Graham. I mean, it just does bring home, what people feel for the football club.
It's amazing, like I said. It's people's lives. It's people being going supporting them for all their lives, and it's like I said, it's for them people, fans, and the local people who are proud of their club. It's for them to continue this.
And it's a big target on that page. I mean, 120 grand is needed. Is that needed literally in the next couple of weeks, or can that be raised over the next couple of months?
We need to know, as a club, it's been for the last 6 weeks or so. It's been in the air with everyone, and wages and creditors chasing them. It's a sum of money where, if we can't get to it, we can't continue to keep pushing things back. It's not. The league have allowed us back to play, so they've lifted it, but with a close monitoring of where are we in the next 2 weeks, because not just the implications on the club, but you think about teams we've played this season who have took 3 points off us. There's a couple of teams took 6 points off us, and all of a sudden, if we decide in 2 months' time that we can't do it, then points and it just becomes a big mess for the league. So it's a frustration. It's frustrating life for everyone. It's hard, but there's not just considering us. There's the league obviously keeping a close eye on everything. So that's why it needs to be sort of an impact of, can we do it? And like I said, then it has to be a short window. Let's we're going to get chased up by not just the league but creditors and different people like that. So it's just hard. And for me, football wise, I've got a group of players who are busting the gut to get back on the pitch, but there's also a group of players who live on the wage they get from Mask. There's a lot of young lads, and that's the only money they've got to pay bills, and they're asking you each week, are we going to get paid? And if that just continues week to week, month to month, it's difficult for anyone to manage, and it's difficult for any of the players to want to be. Unfortunately, they love the club and they love playing for it, but they also have to pay the bills.
Well, let's get the message out there well and truly across North East football, the North East football community. I mean, there must be some decent businessmen who have got football at their heart. Maybe they can step in and help. The public are doing their bit. We know we've got tonight outside the Riverside, there's the buckets are there, so we're asking Borough fans to dig deep, and Hull City fans who are travelling up, dig deep and see what contributions you can make. We've just got a message coming from Sonners, who lives near Plymouth, who says he follows Mask from afar because he's good friends with Spike.
Oh, wow.
There you go. There you go. So, I mean, the message is out there, so anybody who can donate online. Mask United socials, get on there. You'll find the Just Giving links. You can make your contributions there. And look, the lads on the Three Legends have all said, Graham, that they're quite happy now to try and sort out with the club coming. We'll do a live Three Legends special from the club. See if we can get some tickets sold. See if we can raise some funds that way. Every little bit helps. I'm assuming right now.
That'd be amazing. That would be. Tell the lads, thanks very much.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Keep in touch. Let us know how it's going. I'll be in touch with the club, and we'll. Yeah, brilliant stuff, Graham.
Chin up, Graham.
Fingers crossed. Wish you well. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, man.
Graham Lee, the Mask United manager. So, I mean, it's a reflection, guys, of local non-league football and the struggles that clubs can have.
Yeah, flip side of football, isn't it?
As Steve mentioned, Mask are a big name in non-league football, in North East football certainly. But that club, I mean, I've got a kind of a personal affinity with that club anyway. That club and its ground is a focal point of the community. The brass band for Mask actually rehearse on the ground as well. They rehearse in their little band hall. It's just so much more than a football club to that town. And you can hear how downbeat Graham is, and quite rightly so. He's got to go in to train a bunch of lads who are now giving their time freely, and it's costing them their livelihoods. And it's just so important that we look after these clubs. And I've already posted out on X or Twitter, as you prefer to still call it, Dave. But we all need to do our bit to try and save them. And any club like that, because that's your grassroots. That's where your traditional northeast football comes from. So it's hugely important we get behind them and do what we can.
I've refereed at Mask. When I was climbing through the ranks, I refereed at Mask, and it's
I'm sure
a great.
Hold that against you.
No, they won't. It was a great little. I think they won actually. It's a great little setup. It's typical of what you would find for a local, community-based non-league football club. I mean, you've got some big non-leaguers. This isn't a big non-leaguer, but it's big to Mask, and the surrounding area. Yeah, absolutely. Wish them well. Okay. If you can help, please do. Go on, Steve.
Just 8:30.
Yep.
Time for the sports headlines.
From Yarm to Yibby, Harrington to Horsley Hill, Swarwell to Silverlink, the North East Footy Breakfast with Roy, Steve and Ted.
Right across the North East, the Red, the Toon and the Cat.
I don't say this out of ill feeling at all. Well, yeah, of course I do. I'm so pleased that president's been arrested, fellas.
Oh,
yeah.
Shocking. I want to know, has anybody picked up the guy who kicked him in the head afterwards as well?
Yeah, there's been 2 more arrests, I think.
Has there? Right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that was absolute cowardice, that.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, thankfully VAR didn't have anything to do with capturing anybody. Otherwise, we'd be going on for months trying to find out what had happened. But it's basically done and dusted now. I think they've got the right people behind bars, and that was just a disgrace. It really was a disgrace.
Yep. Anyway, let's lighten the mood somewhat.
Champions League's back tonight.
Champions League.
Could
Champions
be the last time for a while, or it could be the beginning of a new journey.
And Borough, of course, closing the gap on Sunderland.
And Borough, of course, closing the gap on Sunderland. But we have not spoken much about Newcastle today. So let's start with the Champions League. And obviously, the way that the Champions League is done these days is it's not easy because this is the group of death. That it was rightly named the group of death, and we know that the top two teams will go through to the round of 16. And I did mention in my headlines that the third place team qualifies for the Europa League knockout round playoff. The fourth place team, of course, is disqualified. But going through the UEFA rules and regs, which we've got to for this group because it's so tight. If two or more teams are equal on points on completion of the group matches, the following criteria are applied in the order given to determine the rankings. A. Higher number of points obtained in the group matches played among the teams in question. B. Superior goal difference from the group matches played among the teams in question. C. Higher number of goals scored in the group matches played amongst the teams in question. D. If after having applied criteria A to C, teams still have an equal ranking, criteria A to C are reapplied exclusively to the matches between the remaining teams to determine their final rankings. If this procedure does not lead to a decision, criteria E to K apply in the order given to the two or more teams still equal. E. Superior goal difference in all group matches. F. Higher number of goals scored in all group matches. G. Higher number of away goals scored in all group matches. H. Higher number of wins in all group matches. I. Higher number of away wins in all group matches. J. Lower disciplinary points total based on yellow and red cards received by players and team officials in all group matches. Red card equals 3 points. Yellow card equals 1 point. Expulsion for 2 yellow cards in one match equals 3 points. K. Higher club coefficient. That's it. So, probably the best thing to do is...
Which means what?
When the match finishes tonight, just have a look at where Newcastle are on the table is probably the best thing to do. Because I could not believe it, reading all of that. What on earth? Talk about making something as complicated as possible. It's nearly as complicated as the draw. And we weren't doing the show when the draw was made. But when the draw was made, I just sat... Honestly, we were all cross-eyed, Newcastle fans. Couldn't understand what on earth was going on. What on earth happened with just pulling the balls out of the machine and just sticking them in, and that was it. Job done. But this is just...
Are you still talking about the draw?
I am, yeah. This is going beyond... This is all going beyond. This is all going beyond the levels of stupidity. This, whoever's got the most points, that's it. Fair enough. There's a tie. You do it on goals, but going to yellow cards and giving them red cards and giving them points, unbelievable, Jeff. It really is. Team news, though, as we know, Eddie Howe doesn't give much away in his press conferences.
Hardly anything.
The big news was the goalkeeping situation because Dubravka, there are doubts over his fitness. He didn't do anything to dispel that. Dubravka wasn't training yesterday. Karius was. So it looks as if Loris Karius could be in line for his second Newcastle United appearance following on from the Carabao Cup final in February earlier this year because Mark Gillespie, of course, is ineligible to play in the competition. As for other injury news, well, we do know that Dan Burn now is on the road to recovery, which is great news. Big news for the youngster as well. Potentially Aidan Harris could be on the bench tonight. He is a reserve custodian. Adam Harrison is in the squad as well tonight, another youngster. So big news for the youngsters potentially coming through. The referee, tonight is from the Netherlands, as is the VAR official. Danny McKelly, I haven't heard anything about him, no history with him at all, and Rob D. Pernick is the VAR official. Don't forget the food bank. The usual stall and bucket shakers will be on Strawberry Place from 5:30 tonight, and a reminder that the club director Jamie Rubin will match all cash donations from tonight's match and donate directly to the food bank. So
interesting that you said Eddie gives nothing away. He certainly didn't in his press conference. This is as long a piece we could get from him.
Yeah, I think we're very positive going into the game. I think, as you say, it's got all the hallmarks of being a very special night. I think all we can do, quite predictably, is try and win the game and try and give our best performance, and that we'll give everything to try and do that.
There you go. That's it. Short and sweet he was in the press conference.
Yeah, said very little. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff. It's live on TNT Sports. Newcastle currently third in the group of 4, and this really is a test of Newcastle's resolve after the last 2 results. Of course, losing 3-0 at Everton, then losing 4-1 at Tottenham. Back-to-back defeats, 7 goals conceded, 1 scored. But looking at the Champions League game, Newcastle, of course, made their Champions League return in Italy. 0-0 was the scoreline. I have to say that Milan probably deserved to just edge the game, but they couldn't take the chances. Tonight, Milan come with their own set of injuries. Only one centre half available tonight. We are told from the Italian point of view, so they have their own injury worries as well. And Eddie Howe calling for the 12th man, which of course did turn up against PSG. The flag display was probably the best atmosphere so far of this season, and Eddie Howe quite reliant on the fact that the crowd get behind the lads tonight, as they always do, but louder and prouder than they've done before, to try and cheer the lads across the line. But I'm not sure how I feel about this tonight, because I've made it quite clear that, and I know it's to the annoyance of some Newcastle fans, that I would much rather dip out of Europe altogether and win the Carabao Cup this year. I'd love to see Newcastle win a trophy. We would then qualify for the Champions League, and it would take the pressure off the league games for us for the rest of the season, take the pressure off everything for the rest of the season, because we'd have achieved our goal. Some fans don't want to do that. This is what we worked for. This is why we're there. We want to be in the Champions League. We want to be, in European competition. That's what it's all about. But everyone's got different opinions. I'm realistic. Especially with this injury situation that we've had over the last couple of months, it's been horrendous. So yeah, for me, if I separate my heart from my head and concentrate on the result, I can't see Newcastle winning tonight. I think they're mentally drained. Maybe not physically drained, but I think they're mentally drained, and I think that they need a hell of a connection between the supporters and the team to get a result tonight. So I am going to go for Newcastle to draw tonight. I don't think,
which will keep her in Europe, won't it?
It'll keep them in Europe. Yeah, I think Newcastle are going to end up third. I think we'll see PSG beat Dortmund, which again would mean that Newcastle wouldn't progress anyway. I think Mbappe and Co will turn up tonight, which will leave them both on 10 points. But I think Newcastle will draw with Milan, and I think Newcastle will finish in third and go into the Europa. That's what I think will happen. Ted?
I'm along the same lines. Weirdly, I can see you winning this. I really can. Purely for the fact, yes, we've mentioned it before, the Tonali derby and all that sort of thing. I just feel like the last couple of performances from Newcastle, that they haven't been at their usual best. That the results speak for themselves on that. I just think, I may be wrong, I just think there was possibly a little bit of holding back, maybe. I don't think they were sort of flying into the game in their usual sort of gusto. Whether they were, trying to keep something in reserve for this. When you think about it, this could be you don't know when you're going to get back into the Champions League. You're currently 7th in the Premier League, which is well outside the 4th place finish that you'd need. So it's all down to this game to put on a really good show, because you literally don't know when's the next time you're going to play Champions League football. There's no guarantees in football. You can ask Everton that. They're a fine example. So I think Newcastle will turn in a performance tonight. Whether it's enough to obviously stay in the Champions League, maybe not. You would point and say probably not. But the Europa League is the nasty one, and the one that, as a Sunderland fan, I'm hoping you do get. Because obviously then it becomes a Thursday night game instead of a Tuesday or Wednesday. And that, to turn around in terms of Premier League football, and obviously one eye on the FA Cup. The FA Cup almost certainly becomes less important if you reach the Europa League. So that's the one I'm going to put my hat on and say that you will get through to that. I think you'll perform well tonight. I think you might have too much for AC Milan, but I also think Dortmund are going to do PSG as well.
Okay.
Interesting.
David?
I think there's a weariness surrounding Newcastle at the moment. I think because of all the injuries that you've suffered recently, the games just keep piling on thick and fast. I just detect a weariness, and I think that will have an impact. So whereas had we gone back 3 or 4 weeks ago, I'd have put money on you to beat Milan, I think tiredness might come in. And it could be a draw, so that would automatically mean it's going to be Europa League. So Ted gets his wish. That's what I can see. But I can see you doing them as well. I mean, AC Milan are not a great team at the moment in comparison to what they have done previously. I mean, their performance in Europe this year has been woeful. So you've got it within yourselves to beat them. I just think that tiredness is creeping in.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those games as well. This is a bit like going into your final game of the season, where you need to win to stay up. And we've been in that situation before, where it's all come to the last game. Jonas Gutierrez getting the goal that kept Newcastle in the Premier League. John Carver, manager at the time. So that atmosphere is unique in any football ground, and we're going to have that tonight because the result in the other game will be echoing around the ground. And if Dortmund take the lead against PSG, then that's going to boost the crowd. The crowd will be up for it anyway, but you will have the roar from the terraces to say that, look, if you get it, and it's 0-0 in Newcastle against Milan, that's going to give Newcastle a boost. So it's going to be one of those nights tonight, and it could go wonderfully well, or it could go terribly wrong. Don't get us wrong. I'm not going to be depressed if I come on tomorrow morning and we are still in the Champions League. I am going to be excited like the next man. But my favoured cup competition this year would be the Carabao Cup. We've done so well to get to the quarters again. We've got a big opportunity, against Chelsea to get through. If we can get our players back, and be at full, more or less full strength for that game, we could find ourselves in a two-legged semi-final, potentially the last ever two-legged semi-final in the League Cup, and find a path back to Wembley. So, yeah, it's all or nothing for Newcastle tonight in the Champions League. But considering this was the group of death and Newcastle were expected to be the whipping boys, you've just got to say congratulations to Eddie Howe and the lads for even getting to this level and getting to this stage of the group stage within that group. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's see what happens. I think we're all pretty much agreed it's going to be a tough match, and it really just depends on which Newcastle turns up. So the other big game tonight, of course, is down
even
Riverside.
bigger. Champions League, the Championship, mate. Come on.
Middlesbrough versus Hull City. Not really one that gets the mouth watering.
El Drastico.
But it's not one that gets the mouth watering. But this is a must-win game for Middlesbrough if they're going to stay in contention. Not just with Sunderland, of course, but with their playoff hopes. And I know it is a marathon, not a sprint. But Sunderland find themselves in sixth place on 33 points, while Borough are 6 places below them now on 27. And the gap, yeah, you might say, the gap is now 6 points. That's 2 wins. Borough need to win tonight to get that back to 3 and to get themselves, keep themselves in with the runners and riders. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Injuries, though, we've heard Rye talk about it, Dave, on this show over the last few weeks, just as much as I have about injuries with Newcastle, of course. Any bright signs on the injury list horizon for Middlesbrough?
No, I mean the bright sign came at the weekend when Dale Fry came back into the side, so that's one back. We were talking with Graham Lee about silver linings, weren't we? Because Mask United are able to play at the weekend. The only silver lining for the Borough going into this game tonight is the two players returning from suspension. So Izzy Jones is back, Anthony Dykesdale, the fullback, is back. So that's just a couple of options it gives Michael Carrick. But you could see the impact that the injuries particularly made against Borough at the weekend. In the Ipswich performance, we just weren't there. Ipswich were a decent side. They weren't a great side, and I would have fancied Borough without the injury crisis. I certainly would have fancied them to do Ipswich at the weekend, but they just weren't there. I think as I was saying to you about this tiredness that seems to envelop the Newcastle United playing staff at the moment. It's there for the Borough. But this, make no mistake about it, this is a massively crucial game tonight. It's no surprise to anybody, because I've been saying this for weeks on this programme and on Legends and everything else we do. This is Borough's biggest test. It's not Christmas and New Year. We're right in the thick of what is a defining moment for Borough's season because of who we're playing. We played Leicester, we played Leeds, we've played Ipswich. There's the top three. We played Preston, promotion candidates. We played Sunderland not too far back. I've got to bring that in just to give a bit more of a silver lining to it. But, West Brom are up very shortly. And this is Hull City, two other teams that are around Borough challenging for the playoffs. So this is the defining moment. And this game, if we were to lose this game tonight, it just gives more impetus to Hull City. There's another one who are battling effectively for two spots in the playoffs. A bit more of a lift over the Borough. So, crucial. Good to see two more back from suspension. I think Izzy Jones was missed massively at the weekend against Ipswich. Borough had crossing chances or chances to run into the box from a wide position. They didn't do it. They went back to midfield. That's what he gives us. So, can you have a game that you can't afford to lose? I think it's tonight.
Could you? I mean, I'm looking at that as well, Dave. You could actually not lose tonight. You could draw the game and end up in the bottom half of the table. At that stage, do you think the fans could get a little bit tetchy and start and turn?
No, I don't think the fans will turn. I think you'll
enough of them.
You'll hear grumblings from them, absolutely, because they're not happy. At the way things are going with the performance. There were a few of the old boo boys out against Ipswich at half-time. They were not pleased with that. But I just think from a psychological perspective, I think when you are bottom half of the table, they could still be just 6 points away from the playoffs, but you've got a massive injury problem. I think psychologically it just puts a few more barriers in between you and success. So that's why... If we get away with a draw, and like Tommy was saying, the Borough fan from Thailand who was on earlier, if Borough can avoid defeat, pull something out of the game, limp through to January where the transfer window opens, and suddenly we can see some reaction from the club to breathe new life into a second half of the season push. That to me is it's not a great position to be in, but it's not a desperate position to be in.
Prediction from you then, Dave?
I'm going to go for a Borough win tonight. I think we'll do it. I don't think it's going to be brilliant. I think it could be a 1-0, but I'm going to go for a Borough win tonight. And look, I feared Ipswich at the weekend, and I let my heart rule my head, and I stuck with a 1-1. But in my head, I was thinking Ipswich were going to do Borough, and they did. I'm going to go for a Borough win tonight. And guess who's walked through the door?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning,
Daz, and make sure you've got the drum roll ready, because I've got my Christmas joke to finish on after I've got Ted's prediction for the Borough game.
We'll be sorted, mate. We'll be sorted.
Well,
okay.
My prediction,
Ted,
mate,
your views.
It was gonna come around sooner or later. I guess we still haven't had a 0-0 draw for Middlesbrough so far this season. So looking at the very
with the entertainers, I'm telling you, one way or the other, with the entertainers, yeah.
It's honestly, your next waist strip should be beige. You're that boring to watch.
There you go.
0-0 draw. 0-0 draw.
0-0 draw. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna go for a 1-1. I'm gonna go for a 1-1. I think Borough will get a point tonight at the very least.
Oh, come on, fellas, give us something.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
and we're going to be live, aren't we? We're going to be live from the Six Medals at 6 o'clock on the Red. So Match Day Live coming again with the fans, mingling with the fans in the boozer beforehand. Just got to give that a plug, fellas. On the Red, Match Day Live, coming to you live from 6 p.m.
Yeah, I'm with Dave on this one. I'm going for a 1-0. And I disagree with our Borough fan who came on earlier. I think even if we do have a bit of a slump over the next couple of games, I think even if we do, get beat tonight, which I hope we don't, I think we will turn it round. I just feel the way that this league is, as long as we can remain somewhere roundabout in touch. Yeah, we're going into the bottom half of the table, but we know what this league is like. a couple of wins in January, in February, pick up a couple of signings, then we can be straight back up again there. So I'm not too worried at the moment. I'm optimistic. I think Carrick has got a plan. And yet, the injury situation has decimated the club without a doubt, and has meant to not it going to plan B, it going to plan D and E and F. But I think there will be signings in January. I think there will be pickup. But even between then, I think we can do something, and I think we can certainly get a point, 3 points tonight if we go out and we play at the top of our game. We've got players coming back in. We've got players getting a little bit more game time. Fry will be another game, Clark will be another game. I'm optimistic. I'm going 1-0.
Yay!
Okay, time to finish off.
8
Time to finish off with our Christmas joke.
Here we go.
Our Christmas joke of the day, lads. Here we go. Who hides in the bakery at Christmas?
Oh, I don't know.
Who hides in the bakery of Christmas? Go on.
A mince pie.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Oh, it's painful.
Good one. That was a good one.
It's just that's just reminded me.
It's awful. It's crap, but it's good.
Yeah, it's just reminded me.
It's not bad. It's good.
I need to phone the dentist.
Oh no. Starting him now.
What have you got on the show? What have you got on the show today then, Daz?
We got the brilliant stand-up comedian Chris McCausland on the show. You'll have seen Chris on a number of things. He's been on the circuit for a long time.
Brilliant.
But over the last couple of years, he's done live at the Apollo. Have I Got News for You? And just last week he was on Richard Osman's House of Games, and he's blind, and they changed the whole format of the game show for him. So he talks about that. He is something special in the comedy world, and he joins us this morning at about 9:30.
Cool.
Brilliant, that.
Fantastic.
We're done, fellas. Fingers crossed again for Rye. We hope that the sandbags are holding out, and hopefully, fingers crossed, he joins us tomorrow on the show.
Yeah, good luck, Rye. See you tomorrow, guys.
Have a good one.
See you, lads.
See you, boys.